बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। वादी कश्मीर से द बैटर्ड एंड ब्रूज्ड वैली, उसकी तरफ से, उन लोगों की तरफ से अब सबको प्यार भरा सलाम पहुंचे। मैं जो कहना चाहती हूँ, आई विल कैप्शन इट, एपिग्राफ इट विद सर्टन वर्सेस, और वो वर्सेस होंगे which will actually suggest things which I am not able to say. अभी आपसे जो भी आज अभी तक बातें हुई, इससे पता चला कि once I look at it, these are still singular cases. लेकिन कश्मीर के चप्पे चप्पे में यही हो रहा है, हर गली कोचे में यही हो रहा है। और आज ये जो persecution, PSAs जो बहुत सारे लगाए गए बच्चों पर, ये उससे बहुत ज़्यादा तंग आकर आप वो गन उठा रहे। There is a will to die. If there is a will to kill in Indian forces, in Kashmiris, there is a will to die. The death they prefer. This death they prefer over this humiliating existence where we have been reduced to nothing. And I have been saying over the years that Kashmir has been made the laboratory of giving supremacy to security agencies. And I said that these security agencies will now use it every part of India because they have internalized it so much. They have given it so much of sanction in Kashmir that they will use it without any qualms of conscience in every part of India. So I said I will use first, I'll just recite some verses which is nothing but an epigraph of what I am going to say. First is, नहीं मिन्नत कशे ताबे शनीदन दास्ता मेरी, खामोशी गुफ्तगू है बेजुबानी है जुबां मेरी। दूसरा है, जब रंग पाब गिल हूँ फजाएं भी कैद हवाएं भी कैद हूँ। जब रंग पाब गिल हूँ हवाएं भी कैद हूँ, क्या इस फजा में परचमे जख्मे जिगर खुले। है जिंदगी, नेक्स्ट इज गालिब का, है जिंदगी में मौत का खटका लगा हुआ, उड़ने से पेशतर ही मेरा रंग जर्द था। नेक्स्ट इज जालिब, जुल्म रहे और अमन भी हो, क्या मुमकिन है तुम ही कहो। हर धड़कन पे खौफ के पहरे, हर आंसू पर पाबंदी, ये जीवन भी क्या जीवन है, आग लगे इस जीवन को। हस्ती गाती रोशन वादी तारीखी में डूब गई, बीते दिन की लाशों पे ए दिल मैं रोती हूँ तुम भी रो। अपने होंठ सिए हैं तुमने मेरी जुबां को मत रोको, तुमको अगर तौफीक नहीं तो मुझको ही सच कहने दो। So the story of democracy begins in 47 in Kashmir. The relation of India with Kashmir is born in sin, and its end cannot be nothing but the end of that sinful relationship. And in 1990, Kashmiris were so much fed up with this prostitution of democracy, manipulation of democracy, denial of civil liberties, denial of rights, that they ultimately launched a rebellion in 90s. And this rebellion was not merely for the restoration of democracy, it was also a rebellion to cut an end to this sinful relationship with India. But what has been the Indian response to it? In the demand for the right to self-determination, every other right has been taken away from us. In response to one right to self-determination, which has not come all of a sudden, which had been guaranteed and agreed upon and legitimized even by UN body, internationally accepted, legitimized. But for the demand of that right, every other right has been taken to us. And what has been the standard response of India? Militarization of the entire area, militarization of the entire society. Ordinarily, militarization refers to the external behavior of a state. But in Kashmir, militarization is nothing but the replacement of a civil governance by a variant of military rule. Because when the simmering resentment formed itself into rebellion in 1990, Kashmir slipped into virtual military rule, marking its descent into a state of militarization from which it has yet to emerge. In fact, it has been fortified every now and then. And you must have seen that in this government, in the present regime, they have got more and more forces into Kashmir, that the number has gone beyond 700,000. Now, what else has this done? The transformation of the military into an agent of domestic repression, arbitrary killings, arbitrary detention, extrajudicial killings, torture, rape, and sexual abuse constitutes part of this process of militarization. Besides arbitrarily grabbing your land and destroying your property every now and then in search of these boys who have picked up guns, and we have seen that so much destruction, especially for the last, first it was in 1992, but then it has stopped to some extent after 4 years, because in last year only 800 coordinate destroy operations took place in the area of South Kashmir. And second, in a context which is characterized by the elimination of distinction between war and human rights abuse, the army, military functions as an agent of the state, not bound by the rule of law or the rules of war or the Geneva Convention, but empowered to violate both with impunity, because you have already heard so much about impunity and you understand what I mean by that impunity. In short, the domestic variant of militarization refers to a pattern of violence which is based on complete disdain for any democratic principle. Now, Kashmir exemplifies an intersection between military use for external defense and military use for domestic repression that has transformed the Indian state into a source of great insecurity for Kashmiris and converted Indian military into an illegitimate agent of repression. Both in turn seriously undermine the democratic credentials of the state. Military processes are not separate from but embedded within Kashmir society. All those who are from Kashmir or those who have visited Kashmir, that it has penetrated deeper and deeper in every locality, village and town of Kashmir. What has it led to? It has led to the dissolution of civil-military distinctions, destruction of civil society and gender transformations, and squeeze space for the natural life day-to-day life of citizens. The militarization is sought to be presented, which is more horrible. It is sought to be presented as a natural order. Because there is a document which was actually released in 2006, December, which is clearly telling army men that you will have to try to change the attitudes and will of the people. Initially it may be difficult, it may take from a couple of years to decades, but you continue doing it so that people themselves will become complicit in what is being done to them. And I'm reminded of Gramsci. He says, military control alone is not going to control people for a long time. What is important is that there is hegemony, and hegemony also carries consent with it. What he means by that, there is a penetration of the ideology of the society, state within each and every institution, so that it becomes so pervasive that you cannot come out of it. It becomes part of your own life. And I can understand it, how this consent of people, I mean, whether they are not conscious that they are consent. You see, all these democratic institutions have been seeped with this state ideology in such a way that you cannot escape it, that people don't know what to believe, because most of the language which they use actually entails the state ideology. And whether it is the integral part, whether it is separatist, whether it is terrorist, all these terms belong to that state ideology, and by recurrently using them in their discourses through media and through their own statements, they are normalizing all, as Manisha was saying, they are actually socially constructing all these terms so that they replace the genuine historical facts and become part of public consciousness. That is the problem. And what else has Delhi done apart from militarization of the entire society? What is the other thing they have tried to do in order to silence Kashmiris and subdue them? That is mystification of Kashmir conflict. And what do I mean by mystification of conflict? Securitized Kashmir is a security problem. We have to put in more and more forces. And then it's a law and order, which I ironically call it, it is lava and order, O-D-O-U-R. Law and order, lava and order. They are always scared that lava will come out of the rot they have been nourishing in our society. Lava will come out, and then there will be stink. They can't stand it. This public law and order is basically lava and order, which they are scared of, and that's why they are creating more and more checkpoints, more and more encounter killings, more and more disappearances. How they are doing it? Because previous speakers have already talked about these laws, whether it is Internal Security Act, National Security Act, TADA, POTA, all these Public Safety Act, APSA, the mother of all. What are they? They are nothing but legalized illegalities. I call it legalized illegalities because they call them, as Manisha was saying, that don't believe that rule of law is always good for us. Because if this law regulates your life, what is this law? This is legalized illegality. Legalized illegality is what is actually controlling Kashmir today. Whether it is in terms of forces, whether it is in terms of agencies, whether in terms of laws, whether in terms of all kinds of penetration they have made in Kashmir society. Therefore, mystification, give it any name other than what it is. The whatness of what means what Kashmir question is, why what Kashmiris are asking, that is obfuscated, that is nullified, that is put behind the under the carpet. But they say, what are they saying? Park trained terrorists, park mercenaries, stone throwers, mercenaries, algawadis, ugarwadis, all kinds of wadis. This is how they are framing Kashmiris. In a way, they are denying us our human status, human content, but they have given all these labels through which Kashmiris are being defined. And when common Indians come to Kashmir, they hug them. They say, but they are quite different. They are not all that. What have been we fed through this media? Media feeds us all these lies. They are this and that and they are nothing. But when they see the hospitality of Kashmiris, in spite of the fact what the Indian forces are doing to Kashmiris, Kashmiris are always opening their arms to people who come from England. And therefore, their own dominant discourse is all the time nullified, rejected by people who visit and who come with open eyes. So mystification of the conflict. Give it any name except for what it is. It is not for the right to self-determine. It is not for all those promises which India has made from time to time. It's not for all that. But it's only Pak has sponsored. Now how will they justify this modern, educated militants in Kashmir today? So far they used to say poor people are picking up guns. But what about today? Trained architects, engineers, doctors, all these people are picking guns because they prefer death to this kind of life. Ye jeevan bhi kya jeevan hai? Aag lage is jeevan ko, jo maine kaha. When I ask these boys, please don't take up guns, you're finishing your lives. We need you, you're destroying a generation. They say we don't want to live in this system. They are willingly going. There is a will to die. And there is a will to die in a nation. No one can actually subdue it. Third thing is how they are dealing this cry for democratic system by pluralization, multiplication of stakeholders. Now, primarily, there are only three parties to Kashmir dispute: India, Pakistan, and the people of Kashmir, from both sides of the LOC. You understand? But over the years, Indian state has tried to fragmentize the entire state in terms of Dogras, Kashmiris, Pandits, Shias, Sunnis, Bakarwalas, all this. They have tried to overemphasize the social diversity. On the one hand, to fracture Kashmir's major narrative. Narrative for rights. It is not for any Islamic state. It is only for rights and the restoration of their sovereignty. And that is what they have been trying to mystify. For the last many years, they have actually tried to do a kind of ideological coup d'etat by transplanting a terminology from business, that is stakeholders. Stakeholder is in a business enterprise. And when there are so many stakeholders in a business enterprise, all of them are equal participants in that, or they have degrees of participation, but all are stakeholders. Now, by transplanting this business terminology into political dispute of Kashmir, they have tried to make Kashmir as a business enterprise, in which there are multiple plethora of interested groups. And in this, they have actually made army as one of the major stakeholders. Now, army is only an agent of the state. It is at the service of the state. It has not any independent existence of its own. But India, in this dominant discourse, has been calling army as a major stakeholder. Unless army wants a decision, we can't do anything. And then, to make you laugh, Kashmir experts, NGOs, all those people have also been made stakeholders. And whenever there is a conference on Kashmir, all these people are brought, and then there is also one Kashmiri. He is also brought into this. Because there are so many stakeholders. Pandits form only 1.5% of Kashmir population, and they are major stakeholders. In any conference, you will have 10 Pandits and you will have one Muslim. This is how they are topsy-turvying the basic democratic principles. That's why I say one way of churning their democracy, their democratic faces, to create as many stakeholders as possible, so that Kashmir has to be fragmentized and divided into slices and pieces which are to be given to all these stakeholders. And that is why Panun Kashmir has already carved out part of Kashmir as a separate, and they are also trying to make, this government has a plan to make a separate road to Pahalgam and carve out that area totally as a, last time in 2008, they had already, government had allotted them land also, over which there was that agitation, and ultimately they had to rescind that order. But that is intact. They have already made this route, and that route will go directly to that area. They are in a way trying to carve out that area out of Kashmir. That's what I mean by saying multiplication of stakeholders, one way of showing the democratic face of India. Another is this fraudulent elections, and most of the Kashmiris who know what kind of elections are fought, how they are manipulated by IB, how they are dividing seats among these people, and how it is the government is actually made in Delhi, and that is actually imposed on Kashmir, because it is nothing but an extension of Delhi government. Extension in the sense they are puppets of Delhi government. They have no existence of their own. I have been calling it is the prostitution of democracy, to use that harsh word. And once you have this assembly is nothing more than an extended municipal corporation so far as the interests of Kashmiris are concerned. But it's a very potent force when Delhi has to get those laws passed which are disempowering Kashmiris. You should know that. It's not always an impotent assembly. It is very potent when they have to get certain laws passed through this assembly. But so far as Kashmir's empowerment is concerned, it is nothing more than an extended municipal corporation. I'm just, I'm quickly going over things because the time is less. Yet another is, I told you, this linguistic imperialism. All those terms are used which are just the opposite of what the real thing is. That's why I say they tell Indian public Kashmir is an integral part, in spite of the fact we have never been given that right to exercise our right, whether we want to be part of India or Pakistan or independent. Hence the question of separation does not arise. We are not separate, we have never been part of India. It has already been, and that may take me to Article 370, because there is a public misperception about Article 370 which has been created by BJP over the years. And what is that public misperception? That Article 370 is a temporary and therefore could easily be removed. We know what successive governments in Delhi have done to Article 370 under the garb of presidential ordinances. They always, so far as 370 is concerned, that any law could be extended to Kashmir with the concurrence of Constituent Assembly. That Constituent Assembly has ceased to be. And on their own arbitrarily they said, now it is the government of the day. And the government of the day is already there made. And therefore whatever they ask them to do, they do. As I said, this is an extended arm, it's a puppet. It is a puppetry government, which is always taking dictates from Delhi. And therefore there is no genuine democracy anywhere. So what happens? When Maharaja entered into this kind of reluctant relationship with India in 1947 October, reluctantly because he wanted to have a standstill agreement with both India and Pakistan. Pakistan agreed, India did not, till it manipulated an instrument of accession. When this king had already left Kashmir, he was in Bombay at that time under popular revolt, he had already left. But king enters into this relationship as a sovereign. He was not subservient at that time. He was not part of India. He was Kashmir was one of the princely states, one of the 4 princely states who were given a choice to accede to either of the domains on the basis of the majority religion of those states. Whereas in Hyderabad, king was Muslim and the subjects were Hindus. And king wanted to be part of Kashmir, but Indians say you can't, no, because of the logic of partition is that you can't. By the logic they have kept there. But once it comes to Kashmir, they entered into agreement with king, whereas 80% population was Muslim. Democracy ka main kehta hu, it is born in sin. So they manipulated this. But even when they manipulated this, king is doing it as an independent sovereign. And once he enters into this relationship, this is on a basis that he is delegating some of the powers to Delhi. But everywhere BJP says, Kashmir has been given special status by India and that's why we want to take it away. What are you going to take? What special status? We have delegated some of the powers. We have delegated some of the powers, though reluctantly, which is also, that instrument accession is always interrogated by people. But even if we take it as a honest, true document, like Governor General at that time has said in case of dispute, it is to be referred back to people. And then you have your resolutions also. Therefore, India has not given any special status to Kashmir. In fact, Kashmiris have parted with some of the powers which they have given to Delhi at that time. And therefore, take it out of your mind that we have given Kashmiris a special status. And then the word temporary was kept along with this article that once the issue is resolved, it will go out of Indian constitution. That is why it was temporary. BJP is I call it hermeneutic violence. Violence of interpretation, they are doing it. So they say it is a temporary and therefore we can remove it at any time. Temporary means the soon to be resolved dispute will end this Article 370. It is in that sense temporary. Because this was kept as a safeguard. When Indian Constitution was made, Nehru called Sheikh Abdullah that how shall we define our relationship with us? So Sheikh Abdullah at that time told the articles which we have given to you in instrument of accession, those should be reflected and nothing else, because it is temporary, it is conditional. And it can remain there only till the dispute is resolved. So it is temporary in that sense. Because I wanted to tell it to the Indian public that India has not given us any special status which other states can also ask. In fact, they have taken power from us, they have taken our sovereignty, and our whole struggle is for the restoration of that sovereignty which they have taken us. Yet another way they have tried to deal with this is marginalization of this resistance, marginalization of dissent. अरे mainstream Kashmir की है हमारे साथ. These are few ये misled people by Pakistan who are actually asking for something. These are few people. ये कुछ गुमराह लोग हैं जो ये सब बातें करते हैं. Over the years, for the last 20 years, I have been saying mainstream of Kashmir is resistance to this democracy and to this law. But media is also compromised. Media uses the terminology of the state. They are making current the terminology of the state because it has a cognitive value. It is replacing the real knowledge from your minds and replacing it with falsehood. But media, even Kashmir media is at the, some of it is also at the, or even if they are not, but imperceptibly, unwittingly, they are using the terminology which suits the state discourse. And therefore they are using all these terms with the of the state discourse, which is actually falsifying the reality, falsifying the facts. I could go on and on, I think it's time, but I will end by Iqbal Ahmed. You know who is Iqbal Ahmed? He was a very great political scientist of Pakistan. He said Kashmir, he said certain things, but before that, Kashmir's desire to chart a future without line of control mandates a new political imaginary that transcends national and constitutional legalese, and a conservative geopolitics that has imprisoned a people's imagination within the bordered, militarized and nuclear version of the nation state. Kashmiri's sentiments and aspirations plead for a political imagination that sheds obsolete hierarchical forms of the nation and thinks of justice, reconciliation and selfhood. Such an imagination means that India and Pakistan relinquish their military and nuclear rivalry that has proved politically divisive, economically ruinous, and historically and ethically barren. Iqbal Ahmed's eloquent words are worth quoting. He says, "To become prosperous and normal peoples, we must make peace where there is hostility, build bridges where there are chasms, heal where there are wounds, feed where there is hunger, prosper where there is poverty. Kashmir is the finest place to start, and not merely because it is the core of the Indo-Pak conflict. Our histories, cultures and religions have converged in Kashmir. Our rivers begin there, mountains meet there, and our dreams rest there." Once, this is unquote, once Kashmiris secure justice and dignity they so richly deserve, India and Pakistan can emerge from their mutual abyss of violence to chart a new future as modern states with interlinked cultures and communities. Only a restored Kashmir to its pristine glory can in turn restore a subcontinent torn by war, militarized borders, nuclear weapons, and a 7-decade-long line of control. And Kashmiris will then, in the words of Agha Shahid, truly pronounce that blessed word. Truly bless, truly pronounce that blessed word for the first time, which is nothing but azadi. Thank you very much.